Remember Jetix? Remember what a great lineup of shows they had? I do, and I thought it'd be nice to pay tribute to the network that gave me fun childhood memories by turning its mascot, Jay the Jetix cat, into a plushie. Well, that, and I couldn't think of anything else to sew at the time, so a Jay plushie it was. Now, Jay is a ball with ears and feet, so I decided to recycle this 4-panel sphere sewing pattern I used when making my Hisuian Voltorb plushie. So I started this project by taking measurements of that. Voltorb measured to be 9.5 centimeters tall, so I increased this JPNG until the sphere was 9.5 centimeters tall. The image was then traced, printed, and then I got to work making a mock-up. I decided the base of the ears and feet would be 2 centimeters wide, but the length of these would be whatever size they came out as when I increased the JPNG in PowerPoint. I sewed a sphere and used it to figure out where to place the ears, feet, and eye. Unfortunately, I did have to change the shape of the eye as the paper cutout didn't lay flat on the sphere I had sewn. The panel I drew the eye on was cut off, and from that I made a sewing pattern piece. This brought me to my second mock-up. Irritatingly, the second mock-up is where I had some problems. I don't know how well you can tell looking at this image, but the fabric bunched up, causing a gathering effect, which was making it hard for me to know how accurate the sewing pattern was. It turns out lint can build up in sewing machines, and every so often you have to dismantle the machine and remove the lint with a vacuum cleaner. Isn't the learning process fun? Then I tested the sewing pattern for the feet and ears. And can we just take a moment to appreciate how cute these feet look? They were then appliqued onto the body with an invisible ladder stitch, and the second mock-up was finished. Also, when attaching the feet, I discovered my pinking shears are magnetic. Moving on. It was now time to work on the surface fabric. I began by making the eye. I followed the outline with a back stitch. For the eyebrow I used a satin stitch, and for the rest of the eye I used a fill stitch. This had varying degrees of success. I'll let you be the judge. I was worried about any scrap fabric bleeding through, so I recycled my lining idea from my Hisuian Voltorb plushie. White fabric held the surface fabric with a zigzag stitch, and then attached the 4 panels together with a running stitch. However, learning from that previous project, I placed the pins on top of the seam allowance so I wouldn't accidentally sew around them like I did when making the Hisuian Voltorb plushie. However, the opening I left to reverse the fabric was too small, so I widened the opening with some picking and new stitching. Then I reversed the fabric, and everything seemed fine, until I started stuffing. I found this protrusion in the middle of Jay's face. I flattened it with an invisible ladder stitch, and it looked better? Some of the chalk markings I made to know where to put the ears and feet didn't line up by the seams, and there was some fabric bunching at the bottom of the sphere. I redrew the panels to know where to attach the ears and feet. The opening I left to reverse the fabric was stitched up. I salvaged the ears and feet from the mock-up to use as lining. I added some stitching to remind myself where to stitch the ears and feet to the rest of the body. Then they were stuffed and attached to the body with more invisible ladder stitching, and the Jay plushie was finished. Now, I'm disappointed with how this turned out. Just look at the mock-up. Look at how well it turned out. It's nice and smooth along the seams. Also, the ears and feet are so precisely placed on the body. And then we get to the plushie proper, and it's a bit messy. The problems with the ears and feet are easy to explain. I should have attached them to the middle of an individual panel of fabric, and not on top of the seam, spreading it across 2 pieces of fabric. That way, the issue of the asymmetrical chalk markings wouldn't have happened. In the case of the bumps, the part I'm even more upset about is despite learning from previous projects, I had the same problem anyway. My best guesses as to why these bumps formed are the following. Number 1, I didn't follow the seam lines as well as I thought I had when sewing the panels together. Or number 2, attaching the lining fabric to the surface fabric with a zigzag stitch on a curved seam means once I reverse the fabric, there's too much of it fighting to be in the same space. Now for the parts I like. You know what? I just don't like this plushie, okay? But hey, that's the learning process, I'm afraid. And maybe you liked this plushie. And if you did, please show your support by liking this video, subscribing to my YouTube channel, sharing this video with your friends, or following me on social media. And I'll see you in the next one. And remember, the world of Jetix belongs to you. Me not so much, but definitely you.
Jetix!